My wand-making journey began at my local woodworking shop 15 minutes before they closed, and after wandering around for a bit, I found the turning section. The employee was super helpful, and together we found these 3 pieces. Then, armed with this very detailed and dimensionally consistent schematic, I called upon the help of this guy to actually make the wands. Meet Corey. He married my sister. This being my first ever wood turning project and his first since the 4th grade, we made a little warm-up piece. From that point on, we were basically professionals. However, I still made Corey round my piece of wood.
Ready?
The lady at the store said Paul Rosa is very dusty, so I took her advice and wore a mask. I should also point out that to be extra safe, my hair should have been pulled completely back. But luckily no hair was caught in the lathe this day. Because I am naturally gifted at everything that I try, my wand looked pretty much the same for nearly 2 hours, and it refused to slim down more than a millimeter at a time. Deciding that it may be a tool problem, we took a quick sharpening break and found that I could work much faster. I eventually got it down to a good diameter, and it was time to add the details.
We're going to start the taper, so right here will be this end's taper. First notch. And then we're going to go 1 centimeter. This doesn't have centimeters.
Draco's wand is by far the least complex wand made for the movies, but in addition to me not being sure if my skills could handle anything more, I can really appreciate the elegance in its simplicity. Corey helped me with the finishing touches of rounding the ends and sanding it down, and before we even took it off the end blocks, I was pretty proud of how it turned out, especially compared to our warm-up piece on a softer wood.
It's like an old sewing machine.
For the last wand made this day, Corey used the canary wood and freestyled his own version in less than an hour. We really aren't experts by any stretch, but this was probably the most fun I've had working on an art project.
I know what I'm doing to make it red with the size baseball bat. It's like a Louisville Slugger. It's called the Nashville Hitter.
Oh, look at it all.
Scared, Potter.
You wish.
After this, I did my favorite kind of shopping, which is free shopping at my parents' house, and I found this wood stain. As previously stated, I am automatically an expert at anything I do, so naturally my staining technique was flawless. Moments after setting these aside to dry, I texted Corey to let him know that I cannot be held legally responsible for how ugly the stain is on his wand, and he said to remember to use thin layers. A little late for that now, but I'll know for next time. Let's take a look at the wands. The stain on the handle probably could have used a few more coats, but I'm really pleased with how the red in the wood is shining through a bit. For Draco's wand, I copied the design used in the films, but the length referenced in the books. And here's how it compares to Hermione's wand that you can get from Universal. Seeing a 10-inch wand makes a lot more sense as to how the characters would store these in their hair or in their boots. Also, Corey, I'm really sorry, but here's how the stain turned out on yours. Here's the thing. I already own a Weasley sweater. I had my sister pick it up for me when she went to Universal last summer, and I think it looks decently accurate to the films. However, this fabric is so repulsively itchy that I feel so sad for my $80 that I spent on this because I will never wear it. With this deep-rooted sadness in mind, I went to Hobby Lobby and picked out the softest yarn I could find regardless of color. And I ended up with just Hobby Lobby brand Yarn Bee Soft Stitch in this olive color. And a more accurate yarn would be some type of tweed, with little flecks of color in it. But Hobby Lobby's tweed was just a skosh too itchy for me. And so now that I have a green yarn, that begs the question, which Weasley sibling wears green? But the real question is, which siblings? Because it's the twins. Now, originally I was thinking about doing a G for George because I could maybe later on pretend it's a G for Jenny and cosplay her or something. But about halfway through the book series, I randomly selected Fred as my favorite twin, and I want to stay loyal to him. Also, my cousin pointed out that a large F on a sweater would be a little funnier out of context than a G. So, let's get knitting. The pattern that I'm using is a design by Allison Hansel, and this is actually the first thing I ever knitted. I made a Hufflepuff colored sweater for my sister, but just never added the letter. I found the pattern as a free PDF online, and I'll leave a link to it in the description. In addition to the Weasley sweater, it has patterns for a few other Weasley-themed objects. Unfortunately, at the time that I started this sweater, I was allergic to gauge swatching and just assumed that since my yarn was a lighter weight than the recommended yarn, knitting a size extra large stitch count and a medium length would be correct. So that's what I did. Please be better than me. At this point, I have the entire back panel done, which is just essentially a giant rectangle. And because I don't find it incredibly interesting to watch other people knit, I went ahead and made the sleeves. This is probably the biggest change that I made from the pattern, and that you're supposed to pick up the stitches for the sleeves and then knit them. But because I'm not a huge fan of flipping the entire project back and forth when you knit sleeves, I went ahead and just knitted them separately, and I'll seam them together at the very end. And finally, I picked up these two mini balls of cream colored yarn, and I'm not gonna lie, they're not incredibly pleasant to touch, but they really are the closest color that I could find to the cream that I wanted. As far as I can find, the pattern doesn't give a chart for any letter other than H, so I had to make my own chart for the letter F. To make this chart, I just went into Excel and resized the boxes to look like knitting. From the pictures of the Weasley sweaters that I could find, the letter is about as wide as the neck, so I distributed my pattern over 38 stitches, and this is what I came up with. To start, I placed stitch markers around the center 38 stitches and used intarsia to knit the letter. I'm not the best intarsia knitter, but just keep in mind that the golden rule of this type of knitting is to pick up the new yarn color from underneath the old one. You do have to keep track of several different balls of yarn when using this method, so if you're curious, each colored section represents a different ball or bobbin of cream yarn that I used. It's not a lot of ends to weave in, but it's definitely more than I thought would be used for just a simple letter. To finish up the sweater, I attached the front and back panels together and picked up stitches to knit the neck. You can totally stop here and just have a vest thing, or you can continue on and regret your choice to knit the sleeves separately because attaching them and seaming the sides took, I kid you not, 4 hours. But hey, I still got a Weasley sweater. As far as film accuracy goes, I would say that this pattern does a better job than the universal sweaters. The neck has that stockinette curl and the sleeve cuffs have ribbing. As far as sizing goes, it definitely looks like I stole Fred's sweater instead of this being made for me, but somehow I'm very okay with that.